All right. So, welcome to evening four of Poetry Through the Ages. And Oh, I'm not queued up. Okay. Yes, session four. Yeah, sorry about that. Session four of Poetry Through the Ages. This is kind of the midsection of our class together, where somewhere. There's seven classes in all, so we're sort of getting there. Last time we all turned into metaphysical poets, which was kind of incredible. And We're going to move some things forward and talk about some of the poetic devices that are kind of important and neat. Before we get started, I do have a question, and I'm going to need everybody to answer this question and maybe write down your answer after we do it. The question is this: um, what's a story in your life that is unique to you that probably nobody else could say about them, a story that is was unique to you, something from your life that happened that was really stands out as unique. And I'm going to go first, and I'm going to ask you to think about one. My story is that would be unique to me. I have two. One of them is the way I met my wife, which was really kind of a series of friend engagements. I met her. I was playing music on stage in a bar and met her that way. And Everybody knows that young 23-year-old guys only play music in bars so that they can hopefully meet a wife. And that exactly happened for me. That's one of the stories. And then the other story I'm thinking about is one time when I was lost in the desert. My family was camping. I got lost, and I was probably lost for maybe 4 or 5 hours. And a helicopter came and got me. And it's a really unique story. That's kind of some. Those are two stories in my life that I could say are unique. James, unique story in your life.
Wow, we would kind of think that so many, almost anything that happens to us is unique. I think it's not it's not necessarily a defining trait or a defining story, but it's special to me, and I think it really does something for me. So it's a story that I tell, even if I don't tell it out loud. It's something that's meaningful. I got to go to, and be a part of two different armed conflicts, two
Mm,
different overseas wars. One when I was 20, one when I was 40, um, or something like that. Not quite 40, 35, I guess. And one was as an enlisted, which typically means you have a high school diploma and whatever training they give you. That's typically what it means, or at least what it used to mean. And then one as an officer. Uh, so I
yeah.
had at that time a PhD, and so I had two different wars, roughly the same location on the planet,
Mm,
from really, really different perspectives.
yeah. Yep.
And so both of those experiences were very different. Um,
Hmm.
anyway, I could talk all night about
Good. All right,
about those,
no,
but
that's it. I was just
that's
looking
all.
for the topic. Yeah. Well, Mama. Oh, I'm sorry. Jenna, tell us what your a story in your life that's unique just to you.
Can you hear me okay?
Hmm. Here you great.
Well, when um, I went to high school in Southern California for 2 years, and then I decided I wanted to go to a private high school and leave home.
Mm, mm,
I was the oldest child of 10 children, and I had all the work to do.
yeah.
Iron those clothes, do those dishes, change that baby, fix the bottle, hang clothes on the line.
And you
We didn't
wanted
have,
out.
yes. And my mother, she may have had another reason that she agreed to send me away to school. And maybe it was to get away from a boyfriend I had,
Yeah. Yeah.
just being 16 years old, or maybe I was 17. So the last 2 years of high school, I went on a Greyhound bus to Canada and lived away from home and went to a private school in Canada.
Yeah.
And that was a big experience,
Nice.
especially since I didn't get to come home even for Christmas.
Yeah.
I was gone 9 months
Nice.
each time.
That sounds epic. Love it. Caroline, story in your life that you would say is unique to you.
I'm still thinking. I can go first
Haley, go
while
ahead.
you think about it.
Mhm.
I one time got, well, I guess I start from the beginning. A story that was unique to me is one time I went on a backpacking trip with a little bit too much confidence, and a companion who was not experienced in the hiking or outdoors, and was also when you're afraid of spiders, like deadly afraid of spiders, even diving and stuff. And we ended up getting lost in the woods for like 16 hours, and similarly had to get rescued by the state police, and we didn't have food or water, and it turned into quite the dramatic episode. But, obviously I survived, so.
Yeah. Wow. That sounds awesome. I would love to hear that story someday. Cool.
And we saw 2 bears.
Okay. Yeah, that they eat people.
Hiding the flare.
Yep. Nice. Caroline, you got one?
Okay, mine would be when I went to Kenya when I was 17, and it was my first time out of the country, and it was really formative to what I do today and what I'm passionate about.
Yeah. I'm not asking people to go further, but would you mind just one step further? How does it connect to what you do today and what you're passionate about today?
I think it connected a lot of my interests with regards to global development, but also building community and what that looks like.
Yeah. Nice. Beautiful. Excellent. And Lisa Renee, she is unable to speak, right? Just say hello, Lisa Renee. Let's just make sure of that. Yeah, no, we don't hear you. But you can hear us. And she did, in a chat, she said, here's what she wrote. I have a severely handicapped older brother. So when I take those first child, second child quizzes, I come out as both. Interesting. I feel like both have to be caretaker and creative, hard-headed kid all in one. But I'm hoping mine and James's Ugandan trip will be the most life-altering up to this point. Oh yeah. So you actually an exciting one coming up. And that the way that a severely handicapped brother forms who you are, so powerful. That's awesome. I want to hear every one of these stories. I hope we get a chance to. Yeah, thanks for letting me kind of break the ice a little bit with that. So tonight, let me tell you, you have a unique treat, and that is we're going to ultimately read Rime of the Ancient Mariner together. We will get to that. And let me just ask you, raise your hand with complete honesty if you read Rime of the Ancient Mariner before class tonight.
We read some of it.
Mm-hmm.
We listened to it on YouTube.
Oh, you listen on YouTube. Yep. Go ahead, Jen.
I read half of it.
Yep. It's good. So what I am going to do is read it all to you.
Are you kidding? The whole thing? Both parts?
Yeah. It'll only take about 15 minutes. And I just think, we owe it to each other to enjoy it together. So we'll see how we get. But before we do that, I want to talk about a couple poems, and tonight we do have a theme tonight, and that is the formality We remember that. Let me share my screen here. We remember that we agreed on a set of descriptions or definitions of poetry, and we're going to get tonight, and we're going to talk about formality. I thought we would start the evening with James and Jackdaw. He sent this poem to us, and James, given the options of how we could get this, and I realize you may have told me that some of these words may not be exactly right, but that's okay. We would love for you to do Jackdaw for us.
We'll see how the sound translates. I don't know if it's going to make it or not.
Mm-hmm.
I believe that the version you have posted, the second and third verses are mixed up. So as I go through, you may, after the first line or the first set there, I think I jumped down to the.
No problem. You do your thing.
Daddy loved his first boy, loved us all, but not the same. Something about that firstborn, someone to carry on the name. John Jr. had a year with Dad before me. John Jr. had a year with Dad before me. I wish we had a new world, place to go to stake a claim. We'd fill up that new world, second sons without a name. I crossed that sea, I could be my own man. Across that sea, I could be my own man. Well, Sarah said she loved me, I love her too with all I am. And she said we should marry. I don't have an inch of land. When Dad is gone, my brother John gets everything. When Daddy is gone, my brother John gets everything. Well, Jackdaw has a gray neck, with body black as coal. The jackdaw builds a simple nest, his common as a river crow, and it takes advantage of circumstances when they come. It takes advantage of circumstances when they come. Well, John and me was working, cutting wood behind the barn. John, he wasn't watching. It caught his jacket on the saw. I stood by and watched him die before me. I stood by and watched him die before me. Well, me and Sarah married, got a boy now of our own. Sarah, she wants several. Told her we would stop at one. This farm is willed with no blood spilled down to him. This farm is willed with no blood spilled down to him. Yeah, Jackdaw has a gray neck, body black as coal. Jackdaw builds a simple nest, is common as a river crow, and it takes advantage of circumstances when they come. It takes advantage of circumstances when they come.
nice. I'm so thankful, James, for your performing that for us. Um, and there, you and I had a little conversation about this beforehand, and what poetry is, and how poetry, connects with music. And a lot of people say that a song is just a poem put to music, and that's not untrue, but I think it's actually an oversimplification of what's really going on with a song. And now, when we talked about what makes a poem, and we said it helps us visualize things in the concrete, and engages the reader's senses, and it means something, and all those things, I believe that this fourth item, the formal experimentation, the formal parts of a poem, as in what it does, how it rhymes, how it does in rhymes, is most present in a song. And James and I had some discussion about poetry versus song, and I said, I think a song is a higher form of poetry because it does everything the poem does, but creates its box in such a way that actually requires the lyrics or the words to end at a certain point, because there's also this thing called meter that keeps the song together. There are extra pieces of formality in a song that really force us into a box. So a song might be beautiful, like James Jackdaw was extremely beautiful, but it also couldn't decide later to have rhyme that's different or words that are different. It's interesting. The box that is the poem is exactly what allows it to be a song when it's at its most refined version, and yet you're trapped inside that box, right? Unless you suddenly change meter and go from that was a 4/4 song, 1, 2, 3. La, da, 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 da. If you wanted to change it dramatically, you'd have to change the meter and do things different that would sound strange. So I think it's so interesting. And when I ask this question, what do the formal aspects of a poem do? In the form of a song, I think it's incredible because it's so beautiful inside of its own formal constraints, but it is ultimately completely constrained in there. It's so interesting. I love that. And so James's poem had a perfect meter, a perfect rhyme. Lines had to end when they did. Visual appearance of the poem had to appear like it did, right? And so it's almost impossible for him to have done anything else unless he made a bridge, which takes it out of its place, or did something different. But that formality of poetry, it really is interesting. Now, I'm going to tell you something about poetry, my personal opinion. I'm not the biggest fan of being locked into the box of formality, but at the same time, I love music so much, and I understand that that box is there. I'm sorry that Mike wasn't able to join us tonight, because Mike did write a poem, and we're going to go through with this, because Mike, I hope you're going to listen back to this later. I want to share with you a poem that Mike sent to me, and I didn't change this poem at all. He wrote it on Valentine's Day, and wrote it actually on behalf of him and his wife to another couple who are their best friends who live in Connecticut. And it's a beautiful poem, but I want you to track the different poetic devices, the formal devices in the poem. And after I read it, I would have had Mike do it if he were here, but I'll just do it for him. After I read it, we're going to talk about some of those formal concerns. And here it goes. This 14th day, when marketers send their gifts like flowers or furs, or chocolates, cards, or other signs, but deep love's worths like aged wines, goes past cliches to vows and troth, past pick-me-ups and other froth, to gentle, firm, and faithful choices, joining friends with similar voices. standing against some winds of culture down from which swoop hawk or vulture, taloned claws to rob the gentle, sometimes though it's subtler, mental. Ads and movies can't seem temply faithful out like Kaplan's Blee, but God's true promises show better. Virtue's gifts not fetter. Though who love and faithful stay, and keep their pledge the honest way. With God's help, we'll find life pieced, walk past temptations, not be fleeced by promised gifts or empty glitter, all that sets the lost a twitter. Two couples blessed with others' trust, a metal that will never rust. Yes, let's be glad for all we share, not take for granted the other pair. God's gift to us, like faithful spouses, will sure endear despite new houses. So let's be glad and raise our glasses, knowing that we join vast masses, sharing values, though they're quiet, heaven's joy without the riot. Thanks, and may our joy speak loud to others who might join our crowd. Grace is what we have to thank, and friendship's gold is what we bank. And this gold's real and genuine. So now let's celebrate with wine. I think that's great. Thank you, Mike. He sent me a message about it, saying that it was written to a friend couple, their best friends, in Valentine's Day. They're away, and of course the sentiment is thinking about times they were together and saying, hey, we're sealed by God even though we can't be apart. Great meaning there. I love it a lot. And just real quickly, shout it out. I asked, we're going to look at just touch on the formal concerns of here. What are the formal markers of poetry in this poem?
End rhyme.
End rhyme. Every sets of two, they're called couplets.
Yeah.
Couplets that match together, rhyme at the end. And so, as beautiful and marked as that characteristic is, kind of like a song, Mike is stuck with that. For example, what if Mike wanted to write a stanza that had an odd number of lines? He couldn't. Not with the rule he set up. He set up this beautiful rhyme scheme, but if he's going to follow that rule, he's locked into an even number of lines because you got to rhyme 1 and 2. It's interesting how formal concerns can both be beautiful but also lock us into it. Nice. Anybody else? A formal concern you want to break out?
He has a really strong assonance and alliteration.
Aha. Would you mind throwing us a couple lines that demonstrate that type of rhyme?
Yeah, let me look. Even like say send her gifts like flowers or furs, like that really strong S, but deep love worth like, oh wait.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying.
Yeah. So in other words, it's not just end rhyme at the end of each line. It's also rhyme inside where the consonants and vowels really work together. I got to tell you, that takes a truly gifted poet to put the rhyme inside of a line and work that way. Yeah. Any other formal concerns anyone want to reach out? I don't know that this was a song. I'm pretty sure it was not. But one of the formal concerns is the meter. Just like a song has stressed syllables, so too does this. And I believe every line has 4 stressed syllables. This 14th day, when marketeers send their gifts like flowers or furs, with chocolates, cards, or other signs, but deep love's worth's like aged wine. So there's 4 stressed syllables in each line, which lends to the music of this poem. And so that makes it beautiful. But to this point I'm trying to make tonight, that it also locks you into something, it actually makes it to where he has to do some things with the words that poets have been doing since written poetry has been, and that is making these kind of strange words like chocolates to make sure that you don't say chocolates, right? Or beginning of the second stanza, standing against some winds of culture. Because if there was against, standing against some winds of culture would put a fifth line and mess up his meter. So you see, even here, where there are formal concerns, they can lock you in. Yeah. I want to share one more poem. And what I did, I liked this poem so much that I rewrote it and took all of Mike's meaning and all of Mike's content. But I asked this question: what if this poem for Trudy and Jeff were rewritten without end rhyme and without meter? We break out of the box that Mike has built with those rules that he made for this poem. And what would that look like if those rules fell away, but the meaning stayed? And here's what I came up with. I call it we four. And you see how I emphasized the meaning of the two couples, right? We four. So let me read this revision of Mike's poem. We four. We stand against the winds of time and distance that rip intimacy apart like a hawk swooping down, plucking a jackdaw from the prairie and gorging upon it ruthlessly. God's promise made true is our faithful love that doesn't fade or fray like the edge of the drapes at the cabin outside of Hartford, where we sipped deep Cabernet and became one family, we four. Two couples, blessed with trust, a metal that will never rust. Let's celebrate what we share, we four, not take for granted the other pair, or the ripened wine we shared.
Can you have my water when you're
God's
back?
gift to us endures beyond miles and years, and we are still one, we four. Friendship's gold is what we share, and when we meet back again at the cabin outside Hartford, we'll sip Cabernet and laugh like four young hillside animals in love, one family, we four. Now, it's interesting. There are a million ways to rewrite any poem, right? But the point I wanted to show here is the formality is the marker of some poetry, but it locks us into boxes. It makes rules that can't be broken unless you decide to break those rules. And so by taking that meter and that rhyme that Mike had in the original poem and throwing it out the window, sort of I can do anything with it. The meaning is the same, but the presentation is different. Yeah, interesting. Comments, observations. Yeah. And thank you, James. I still don't know exactly what a jackdaw is, but it's some kind of critter, right?
Yeah, it's a bird.
Okay. Okay. For some reason, I thought it was like a rabbit or a marsupial or something like that. So sorry. I guess a hawk. I don't know. Would a hawk swoop down and pluck out a bird? I don't know.
Sure.
Okay.
Sure, yeah.
Okay. Good. Well, then I meant that. Yeah. Cool. That's a great word, by the way, jackdaw. That word has a lot of sound, a lot of voice to it. Nice.
Lisa Renee's got a comment, I think.
Yeah, Lisa Renee, yes, we're gonna look at your chat. I've never seen anybody do that. Lisa Renee, point me to the chat. Cool. Let's see. You say, go back to the original poem, please. Yep. Okay, I'm gonna do that. And and here we are. Okay. Any definition for or waiting for Lisa Renee to and keep their pledge the knowest way. Not exactly sure what you're trying to tell us. What does the line mean? Okay. And keep their pledge the honest way. Let's see. Obviously, Mike's not with us. Let's see where you're talking about. Okay, so we're down here in stanza 2 near the bottom. Those who love and faithful stay and keep their pledge the honest way, with God's help will find life pieced and walk past temptation, not be fleeced by promised gifts or empty glitter, all that sets the lost a twitter. You know, I think we'll have to ask Mike, but I'll tell you how I read it. I'm going to tell you how I read it. I think that I hear him say, drawing the comparison of the trueness or fidelity of love between a marriage and the fidelity of these two marriages keeping intimate and close to each other. It seems to me that this is a love poem between two married couples that are saying, just like two married people should always remain true, so too will we two couples always remain true. So think in terms of we're always going to be together, we four, which is of course why I entitled my version "We Four," right? So reading this kind of consummate, always together foursome. Let me read the lines again. Those who love and faithful stay. In other words, stay faithful. Those who love and faithful stay and keep their pledge the honest way. I'm not exactly sure what he means, but keeping their pledge to always stay together. With God's help, will find life pieced, a peaceful life. Walk past temptation, not be fleeced by the promise of glitter or things that, right? It's the word honest. Yeah. You know, if I were talking to Mike, yeah, so Lisa says it just stands out. The word honest stands out. I agree. You know, and if Mike were here, I would say, hey, Mike, did the rules that you set up with rhyme and meter force you to say those things? Would you have said it any other way if you weren't forced into the rhyme and meter that you had to do? You know? That would be the interesting question, because when I rewrote it and said forget those, here's where it turned into. That's my stanza too. God's promise made true is our faithful love, and the way I interpreted it was that, you know, so those are the same kinds of words that I rewrote. What I was saying was God's promise made true is our faithful love. The fact that we were able to stay together faithfully, we four, is God's gift to us. It doesn't fade or fray like the edge of the drapes. And then I started creating this image that he did not include in his. I tried to do that clear, concrete image thing that I was talking about. So anyway, yeah, my point really, thank you very much, Lisa, for guiding us through this. And we're going to welcome Mike when he comes back next week to jump in here. My point was really to point out this thing about formality of how it's both beautiful and also limiting in poetry. All right, so I said that I was going to do a full read of the Rime of the Ancient Mariner. I believe I can do it in 15 minutes, and I think it's worthwhile to do. But if it seems like my time is off, then I'll get there. While we do it, here's the assignment. While you listen to Rime of the Ancient Mariner, I have an assignment for you, and that is listen to something about the formality of this lyrical ballad. So that's what this is. This is a 1798. You know, came right into the 1800s when England was starting to look backward into the past and say, "Oh, wasn't it beautiful?" And so the lyrical ballad, which is basically a song, which is exactly that's why I kind of asked James, "Hey, would you perform your song for us?" So this really is a song about a story. It's like a bye-bye Miss American Pie sort of thing going on, right, in 1798. And the assignment for you is, while I read, I'm going to ask you to come up with one comment, one observation. When I'm done, we're going to each share one observation, possibly about the meter, the rhyme, the line endings, the visual appearance, and the music that we heard in both James' poem and in Mike's poem. That I ripped Mike's apart and said, forget about the meter, forget about the rhyme, forget about the line endings and the visual appearance and the music, forget about that. Here's where the meaning is, but I want to concentrate tonight on these formal things. So as I read, and I'm going to go pretty quickly, what I'd like you to do is be prepared with a comment. Be prepared with a comment about the formal aspects of this lyrical rhyme. Okay, so I'm going to do it. The rhyme of the ancient mariner. It is an ancient mariner, and he stoppeth one of three. By the long gray beard and glittering eye, now wherefore stopp'st thou me? The bridegroom's doors are open wide, and I'm next of kin. The guests are met, the feast is set, and mayst hear the merry din. He holds them with his skinny hand. There was a ship, quoth he. Hold off, unhand me, graybeard loon. At stoof his hand dropped he. He holds him with his glittering eye. The wedding guest stood still, and listens like a 3 years child. The mariner hath his will. The wedding guest sat on a stone. He cannot choose but hear. And thus spake on that ancient man, the bright-eyed mariner. The ship was cheered, the harbor cleared, merrily did we drop below the kirk, below the hill, below the lighthouse top. The sun came up upon the left, out of the sea came he, and he showed bright, and on the right went down into the sea, higher and higher every day, till over the mast of noon the wedding guest here beat his breast, for here he heard the loud bassoon. The bride hath paced into the hall, red as rose is she, nodding the heads before her goes the merry minstrelsy. The wedding guest, he bid his best. Yet he cannot choose but hear, and thus spake on the ancient man, the bright-eyed mariner. And now the storm blast came, and he was tyrannous and strong. He struck with his o'ertaking wings and chased us south along, with sloping masts and dipping prow, as who proceed with yell and blow. He still treads the shadow of his foe, and forward bends his head, and the shape drove fast, loud roared the blast, and southward, aye, we fled. And now there came both mist and snow, as it grew wondrous cold, and ice masts came floating by as green as emerald. And though the drifts of the snowy cliffs did send a dismal sheen, nor shapes of men nor beasts we ken, the ice was all between. The ice was here, the ice was there, the ice was all around. It cracked and growled and rolled and howled like noises in a sound. At length did cross an albatross. Thorough the fog it came, as if it had been a Christian soul. We hailed it in God's name. It ate the food, it ate ne'er had it eat, and round it flew. The ice did spit with a thunder fit, the helmsman steered us through. And good south wind sprung up behind, the albatross did follow, and every day for food or play came to the mariner's hollow. In midst or cloud, on mast or shroud, it perched for vespers 9, whilst all the night through fog smoke white glimmered the white moonshine. God save thee, ancient mariner, from the fiends that plague thee thus. Why look'st thou so with my crossbow? I shot the albatross. The sun now rose upon the right. Out of the sea came he, still hid in mist, and on the left went down into the sea. And the good south wind would still blew behind, but no sweet bird did follow, nor any day for food or play came the mariner's hollow. And I had done a hellish thing, and it would work 'em woe, for all averred I had killed the bird. that made the breeze to blow. Ah, wretched, they say, the bird to slay that made the breeze to blow. Nor dim nor red, like God's own head, the glorious sun uprist. Then all averred, I had killed the bird that brought the fog and mist. 'Twas right, they said, such birds to slay that bring the fog and mist. The fair breeze blew, the white foam flew, the furrow followed free. We were the first that ever burst into that silent sea. Down dropped the breeze, the sails dropped down, 'twas sad as sad could be, and we did speak only to break the silence of the sea. All in a hot and copper sky, the bloody sun at noon, right above, and the mast did stand no bigger than the moon. Day after day, we struck, no breath nor motion, as idled as a painted ship upon a painted ocean. Water, water everywhere, and all the boards did shrink. Water, water everywhere, nor not a drop to drink. Very deep did rot, O Christ, that ever this should be. Yea, slimy things did crawl with legs upon the slimy sea. About, in reel and rout, the death fires danced at night. The water like a witched oils burnt green and blue and white, and some in dreams assured were of the spirits that plagued us so. 9 fathom deep he had followed us from the land and mist of snow, and every tongue through utter drought was withered at the root. We could not speak no more than if we had been choked with soot. Ah, well a day, what evil looks had I from old and young, instead of the cross, the albatross about my neck was hung. There passed a weary time, each throat was perched, and glazed each eye. A weary time, how glazed each weary eye, when looking westward I beheld at something in the sky. At first it seemed a little speck, and then it seemed a mist. It moved, and took at last a certain shape, I wist. A speck, a mist, a shape, I wist, and still it neared and neared, as if it dodged a water sprite. It plunged and tacked and veered, with throats unslacked, with lips baked. We could nor laugh nor wail. Though utter drought, all dumb we stood, I bit my arm, I sucked the blood, and cried, a sail, a sail! With throats unslacked, with black lips baked, agape, they heard me call. Gramercy, they for joy did grin, and all at once their breath drew in, as they were drinking all. See, see, I cried, she tacks no more, hither to work us wheel. Without a breeze, without a tide, she steadied with upright keel. The western wave was all aflame, the day was well nigh done. Almost upon the western wave rested the bright sun, when that strange shape drove suddenly betwixt us and the sun. And straight the sun was flecked with bars. Heaven's mother sent us grace. As if through a dungeon gate she peered with broad and burning face. Alas, thought I, and my heart beat loud, how fast she nears and nears. Are those her sails that glance in the sun like restless gossameres? Are those her ribs through which the sun did peer as through a gate grate? And is that woman all her crew? Is that a death? And are there two? Is death that woman's mate? Her lips were red, her looks were free, her locks were yellow as gold. Her skin was as white as leprosy. The nightmare life in death was she, who thicks man's blood with cold. The naked hulk alongside came, and the twain were casting dice. The game's done. I've won, quoth she, and whistles thrice. The sun's rim drips, the stars rush out. As one stride comes the dark, with far head whispers o'er the sea. Off shot the spectre bark. We listened and looked sideways up, fear at my heart at his cup. My lifeblood seemed to sip, the stars were dim, the thick as night, the steersman's face by lamps gleamed white from the sails, from the dew, from the drip, till clomb above the eastern bar the horned moon with one bright star with the nether tip. one after one, by the star-dogged moon, too quick for groan or sigh. Each turned his face with a ghastly pang and cursed me with his eye. 4 times 50 living men, and I heard nor sigh nor groan. With a heavy thump, a lifeless lump, they dropped down one by one. The souls did from their bodies fly. They fled to bliss or woe, and every soul it passed me by like the whiz of my crossbow. I fear thee, ancient mariner. I fear thee, skinny hand. And thou art long and lank and brown as the ribbed sea land, I fear thee and my glittering eye. And thy skinny hand so brown, fear not, thou wedding guest, this body drop not down. Alone, alone, all alone, alone on a wide, wide sea, and never a saint took pity on my soul. In agony, many men, so beautiful, and they all dead did lie, and 1,000 slimy things lived on, and so did I. I looked upon the rotting sea and drew my eyes awake. I looked upon the rotting deck, and there the dead men lay. I looked to heaven and tried to pray, but or ever a prayer had gushed, a wicked whisper came and made my heart as dry as dust. I closed my lids. I kept them closed, and the balls like pulses beat. For the sky and the sea and the sea and the sky lay dead like a load on my weary feet, and the dead were at my feet. The cold sweat melted from their limbs, nor root nor reek did they. The look with which they looked on me had never passed away. An orphan's curse would drag to hell a spirit from on high. But oh, more horrible than that is the curse in a dead man's eye. 7 days, 7 nights I saw the curse, and yet I could not die. The moving moon went up to the sky, and nowhere did I abide. Softly was it going up, and star on two beside. Her beams bemocked the sultry main, like April hoar-forced spread. But where the ship's huge shadow lay, the charmed water burnt away, a still awful red. Beyond the shadow of the ship, I watched the water snakes. They moved in tracks of shining white, and when they reared, the elfish light fell off in hoary flakes. Within the shadow of the ship, I watched their rich attire, blue, glossy green, and velvet black. They coiled and swam, and every track was flash of a golden fire. O happy living things, no tongue their beauty might declare. A spring of love gushed from my heart, and I blessed them unaware. Sure, my kind saint took pity on me, and I blessed them unaware. The self-same moment I could pray, and from my neck so free the albatross fell off and sank like lead into the sea. Oh, sleep, it's a gentle thing, beloved from pole to pole. To Mary's queen the praise be given. She sent the gentle sleep from heaven that slid into my soul. The silly buckets on the deck that so long remained, I dreamt that they were filled with dew, and when I awoke it rained. My lips were wet, my throat was cold, my garments all were dank. Sure, I had drunken in my dreams, and still my body drank. I moved and could not feel my limbs. I was so light, almost I thought that I had died in sleep and was a blessed ghost. And soon I heard a roaring wind. It did not come anear, but with its sound it shook the sails that were so thin and sere. The upper air burst into life, and 100 fire flags sheen to and fro. They were hurried about, and to and fro, and in and out, the wan stars' distance between. And the coming wind did roar more aloud, and the sails did sigh like sedge, and the rain poured down from one black cloud. The moon was at its edge. The thick black cloud was cleft, and still the moon was at its side. Like water shot from the high crag, the lightning fell with never a jag, a river steep and wide. The loud wind never wretched the ship, Yet now the ship moved on. Beneath the lightning and the moon, the dead men gave a groan. They groaned, they stirred, all uprose, nor spake nor moved their eyes. It had been strange, even in a dream, to have seen those dead men rise. The helmsman steered, the ship moved on, yet never a breeze up blew. The mariners all 'gan work the ropes where they were wont to do. They raised their limbs like lifeless tools. We were a ghastly crew. The body of my brother's son stood by me, knee to knee. The body and I pulled one rope, but he said not to me, I fear thee, ancient mariner, be calm, thou wedding guest. It was not the souls that fled in pain which to their courses came again, but a troop of spirits blessed. For when it dawned, they dropped their arms and clustered round their mast. Sweet sounds rose slowly through their mouths and from their body passed. Around flew each sweet sound, then darted to the sun. Slowly the sounds came back, now mixed, now one by one. Sometimes a dropping from the sky I heard, the skylarks sing. Sometimes all little birds that are, how they seem to fill the sea and air with their sweet jargoning. And now 'twas like all instruments, now like a lonely flute. Now this angel's song that makes the heaven be mute. It ceased, yet it's still the sails made on a pleasant noise till noon, a noise like the hidden brook of the leafy month of June, that to the sleeping woods all night singeth a quiet tune. Till noon we quietly sailed on, yet never a breeze did breathe. Slowly and smoothly went the ship, moved onward from beneath. Under the keel 9 fathom deep, from the land of mist and snow, the spirit slid, and he was he that made the ship to go. The sails at noon left off their tune, and their ship stood also. The sun right above the mast had fixed to her ocean, but in the minute she again stir with a short uneasy motion, backward and forward, half her length, with a short uneasy motion. Then, like a pawing horse let go, she made a sudden bound. It flung the blood into my head, and I felt it in a swound. How long in that same fit I lay, I've not to declare, but ere my living life returned, I heard it in my soul discern 2 voices in the air. Is it he, quoth one? Is this the man, by him who died on cross? With his cruel bow he laid full low the harmless Albatross. The spirit who bideth by himself in the land of mist and snow, he loved the bird that loved the man who shot him with his bow. The other was a softer voice, as soft as honeydew. Quoth he, the man hath penance done, and penance more will do. But tell me, speak again, thy soft renewing. What makes this ship drive on so fast? What is the ocean doing? Still as a slave before his lord, the ocean has no blast. His great bright eye most silently up to the moon is cast, if he may know which way to go, for she guides his smooth or grin. See, brother, see how graciously she shooketh down on him. But why drives on that ship so fast, without or wave or wind? The air is cut away before and closes from behind. Fly, brother, fly, more high, or we shall be belated, for slow and slow that ship will go when the mariner's trance is abated. I woke and we were sailing on, as in a gentle weather. 'Twas night, calm night, the moon was nigh, the dread men stood together, all stood together on the deck for a charnel dungeon fitter, all fixed on me the stony eyes that in the moon would glitter. The pang, the curse with which they died, had never passed away. I could not draw on my eyes from theirs, nor turn up them to pray. And now this spell was snapped once more. I viewed the ocean green, and looked for far forth, yet little saw of what had been seen. Like one that on a lonesome road doth walk in fear and dread, and having once turned round walks on, and turns no more his head, because he knows a frightful fiend doth close behind him tread. But soon there breathed a wind on me, nor sound nor motion made. Its path was not upon the sea, its ripple in a shade. It raised my hair, it fanned my cheek like meadow gale of spring. It mingled strangely with my fears, yet it felt welcoming. Swiftly flew the ship, yet she failed softly too. Sweetly, sweetly blew the breeze, on me alone it blew. O dream of joy, is this indeed the lighthouse top I see? Is this the hill? Is this the kirk? Is this mine own country? We drifted o'er the harbor bar, and with sobs did pray, "Oh, let me be awake, my God, or let me sleep away." The harbor bay was clear as glass, so smoothly it was strown. And on the bay moonlit lay, in the shadow of the moon. The rock shone bright, the kirk no less, that stands above the rock. The moonlight steeped in its silentness the steady weathercock. And the bay was white with silent light, till rising from the shameful many shapes that shadows were, in crimson colors came. A little distance from the prow, those crimson shadows were. I turned my eyes upon the deck. O Christ, what I saw there! Each corse lay flat, lifeless and flat, and by the holy rood, a man all light, a seraph man, on the corpse there stood. The seraph band each waved his hand. It was the heavenly sight that stood as signals to the land, each one a lovely light. The seraph band each waved his hand. No voice did they impart, no voice, but oh, the silence sank like music on my heart. But I heard the dash of oars. I heard the pilots cheer. My head was turned perforce away, and I saw a boat appear. Pilots and the pilot's boy, I heard them coming fast. Dear Lord in heaven, it was a joy the dead man could not blast. I saw a third. I heard his voice. It is a hermit good. He singeth loud his godly hymns that makes it in the wood. He'll shrieve my soul. He'll wash away the albatross's blood. This hermit good lives in the wood, which slopes down to the sea. How loudly his sweet voice rears. He loves to talk with mariners that come from the far country. He kneels at morn and noon and eve. He hath a cushion plump. It's the moss that wholly hides the rotted oak sump. The skiff boat neared. I heard them talk. Why, this strange, I trow. Where are those lights so many and fair that signal made but now? Strange but, my faith, the hermit said, and they answered not our cheer. The planks looked warped, and see those sails, how thin they are and sere. I never saw aught like to them, unless perchance it were brown skeletons of leaves that lag my forest brook along, when the ivy tod is heavy with snow, and with the owl hoops and wolf below that eats the she-wolf's young. Dear Lord, it has fiendish looks, the pilot made reply. I'm afeard. Push on, said the hermit cheerily. The boat came closer to the ship, but I spake nor stirred. The boat came close beneath the ship, and straight a sound was heard. Under the water it rumbled on, still louder and more dread. It reached the ship, it split the bay, and the ship went down like lead. Stunned by that loud and dreadful sound which sky and ocean smote, like one that had been 7 days drowned, my body lay afloat. But swift as dreams, myself I found within the pilot's boat. Upon the whirl where sank the ship, the boat spun round and round, and all was still, save that hill was the telling sound. I moved my lips, the pilot shrieked, and I fell down in a fit. The holy hermit raised his eyes and prayed where he did sit. I took the oars, the pilot's boy, who now doth crazy go, laughed loud and long, and all the while his eyes went to and fro. Ha, ha, quoth he, full plain I see, the devil knows how to row. And now, all in my own country, I stood the firm land. The hermit stepped forth from the boat, and scarcely could he stand. Oh, shrieve me, holy man, the hermit crossed his brow. Say quick, quoth he, I bid thee say, what manner of art art thou? Forthwith his frame of mind was wretched with a woeful agony, which forced me to begin my tale, and then it let me free. Since then, at the uncertain hour, the agony returns. Until my ghastly tale is told, his heart within me burns. I pass like night from land to land. I have a strange power of speech. That moment that his face I see, I know the man that must hear me. to him my tale I teach. What loud uproar bursts from that door? The wedding guests are there. But in the garden bower, the bride and the bridemaid singing are, and hark the little vespers bell which biddeth me to pray. O wedding guest, this soul hath been alone on a wide, wide sea, so lonely 'twas that God himself scarce seemed there to be. O sweeter than the marriage feast, 'tis sweeter far to me to walk together in the kirk with a godly company, to walk together in the kirk and all together pray, while each to his great Father bends, old men and babes and loving friends, and youth and maidens gay. Farewell, farewell, but this I tell, to thee, thou wedding guest, he prayeth well who loveth well, both man and bird and beast. He prayeth best who loveth best, all things both great and small. For the dear God who loveth us, he made us and loveth all. The mariners whose eye is bright, whose beard is age as hour, is gone. And now the wedding guest turned from the bridegroom's door. He went like that, hath been stunned, and is of sense forlorn, a sadder and wiser man. He rose the morrow morn. Yeah. So thank you for those of you who stuck around and listened to the whole thing. Any comments about the formal considerations of the Rime of the Ancient Mariner?
I wonder why he doesn't stick with 4 stanzas.
Yeah.
4, 4, 5, and sometimes it's irregular.
Yeah.
Very inconsistent.
Very
It's like he had inconsistent. He had this pattern, and then sometimes it seemed like for no apparent reason. At least once it seemed like he did it to speed up the pace. He changed. It went from 4 lines to 6 or 8, and action was happening, and his words shrunk, and he had it kind of made a faster pace.
Yeah.
But that wasn't the case all the time.
Yeah. Jenna, your comment, I felt like I was hearing you say, I wish it was consistent. I wish he stayed within the rules that he had set up. I wish that the box was more square. Is that what you said?
I think if he had been born 200 years later,
Uh-huh.
he might have realized what he's doing.
Mm.
He had
That's good, yeah.
much schooling back then.
Yeah, yeah. Really interesting. Yeah, well, I got to tell you, I think that my personal opinion, just me as a poetry reader, is that this lyrical ballad was a little bit too epic. It probably could have had a little bit of a little more constraint on one's time, right? It was extremely long and probably could have done it more efficiently. But at the same time, it did seem like performance, kind of like James's song earlier was a performance of a thing. I have a feeling it was written as a ballad for entertainment's purpose, as in, hey, y'all, tonight we're going to do this poem and sit in, pop some popcorn, and this is going to be the entertainment, and maybe it goes on. But it sure was locked into its rhyme and its rhythm and its meter. And like Jenna said, when it broke the rules, it seemed like maybe it was doing it for a purpose. I'm not sure.
To me, it seemed like something you would tell around a campfire.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's a story.
Yeah.
There's a lot of drama. It's
James, I think we're losing you just a little bit. I think I might have lost James a little bit.
not overly complex with 5 characters, so you're going to be lost, not play. That's not what it's like to say. I would make my kids around a campfire.
Yeah.
It seems like he lost his internet.
Yeah, it got a little bit jagged. But yes, I'm going to Lisa Renee's comments. Thank you for Lisa Renee. That's awesome. That's the comment. And here's what she says. She says, very heightened visuals. Yes, concrete visuals. For instance, he has penance done. The penance more he'll do. Fleeting souls as if they had been loosed and not wanting to dally. Yep. Cost a full credit on Audible. This reading, that is. It's a person with only one thing in his life, so that's all he dreams of. Yeah. So nice. Good comment. Let me make just two. I mean, I wouldn't be a poetry teacher if I wouldn't point out two things that have stayed with Western culture forever, and that is the metaphor of the albatross. If you ever hear anybody say, "Yeah, that's the albatross around his neck," that common saying comes right here from Rime of the Ancient Mariner, and basically the meaning. To me, poetry is about the meaning. The meaning is the most important, not the rhyme, not the meter, not the stanzas, but the meaning. And the meaning of the Rime of the Ancient Mariner is this: if you mess up, you will carry that mistake as long as you want to until you drop it in the ocean and let it go. I think this poem teaches an important lesson about forgiveness, about change, and most importantly about self-forgiveness. This this sea person took his arrow, shot a bird out of sport, and carried that albatross for a long, long time until he was finally ready to let it go and forgive himself. That albatross, that's where this metaphor comes from, and I think that's one of the most important metaphors in Western culture. And then the second thing that I, as a poetry teacher, have to point out is that phrase, water, water everywhere, and not a drop to drink. Anytime anyone talks about, any teacher teaches what it means to be ironic, this phrase comes to light. Here I am in the ocean. It's in a doldrums. There is no getting out. I'm stuck on a boat. It's not blowing the sails. I can't go anywhere. There is death around me. All of my crewmates are dying of starvation and of thirst. And the greatest need is water, drinkable water. And all around me is nothing but water, non-drinkable water. It is the epitome of irony. It's where irony is born, or at least where irony is fleshed out, and that is in the place of water. Water everywhere, but not a drop to drink. Those are two touchstones of Western culture that come out of this poem. Well, I promised you one thing on day one, and that is we would not go long, and yet here we are, 15 minutes long. And so I'm just going to say, let's let that be enough for us. You guys okay with that? So let's see. Lisa says, so is being surrounded by musicians and being tone deaf irony? Yes! It's beautiful. Musicians everywhere, and not a note to enjoy, right? That's awesome. Nicely done, Lisa Renee. That's awesome. Okay, everybody, thank you much. Thanks. I owe you 15 minutes of your life, and maybe I'll get a chance to repay you. So thanks a lot, and I hope to see you next week for night 5. Bye, guys.
Thank you. Bye-bye. I've been watching my camera. I delivered 3 kittens. Maybe more to come.
That's wonderful.